All right. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Locked Doors, a conference call pretending to be a podcast. where this is basically a giant accountability measure for us to keep working on these projects rather than letting them fall to the wayside. I am Scott Paladin, and I'm working on a werewolf noir audio drama called It Takes a Wolf. One of you guys go.
Oh, sorry. I'm Sam. Sam Stark. I am working on Sam. No, not Sam and West. That's
Sam and West.
I'm working on As and West, which is a spinoff of Unspeakable Distance.
Hi, I'm Jack. I am also working on As and West, which is a spinoff of Unspeakable Distance. Oh my God, there's a dog.
Trying to mollify him.
Baby boy.
So cute.
He demanded that he wanted to be up. Okay.
I'm kissing his little head. So,
as is our format, we start by doing a check-in on how we have done since we have talked. So let's check in with Sam, because it's been a while since we've talked to Sam.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Yeah, we missed Sam last time.
How are you doing with your writing?
So like I said last time I was here, I had to stop. I had to shelve the As and West thing for a while because I had to record an audiobook. I finished the audiobook and I got it done with no pickups, which is kind of awesome if I do say so myself.
That's so awesome.
But so then I was able to take some time to actually like sit. I think I might have mentioned this. I'm a discovery writer, so it's always like head empty, and then when I sit down to actually write something, then it's like, okay, I guess I could do, but then I could do that, but then I could do that, and like it sort of like comes out. So I knew that if I was going to actually sit down and write something, I was going to have to like legitimately sit down. So Jack messaged me and was like, and I was like, oh fuck. So I just sat down and I was like, okay, I gotta get something for Jack. Here we go. So I basically planned out what needs to happen in the first 2 episodes, and I wrote these things down because I wanted to make sure that I got them all in the podcast today. So number one, I've already actually talked all these over with Jack already. So the most important thing is the tone of this podcast is a lot different than what it sort of was in my head at first. It is way more of like a kind of a comedy, fun. It'll get serious eventually, but it's very much of just dudes in space being sort of ridiculous. It's much more comedy than I had originally intended. So the noir narration style of telling the story it doesn't really fit. And so I was listening to this podcast called Hi Nai. It is a Filipino. Oh my God, I hope it's Filipino. And it's incredible. It's a really, really well-written podcast. It's fantastic. Everybody go listen to it right now. And it's actually done in like a found footage or like found audio style. It's like all calls and mostly it's her calling her mother, because Nai is short for mom, so it's like hi mom, and it's all told like with previously like recorded whatever. Anyway, so I was thinking that actually would work really well for As and West because we're coming from Unspeakable Distance, which is all message based, epistolary anyway. I almost said Episcopalian. Right? And so it's all going to be like the first episode that West is sort of in control of is literally just his podcast. He's talking to his audience. He is catching them up. And everything that is like action sequence or anything that's not them in the cockpit telling the story, it's actually found audio or found footage. So it's like the security cameras on the station or calls between people, other characters that will So it's all found audio, and instead of that narration thing. Technically, it is narration, but they're sitting in the cockpit of their stolen ship, like grousing at each other. Number 2 is I definitely like I wrote the points down of the synopsis, like what needs to happen at least in the first episode, like this, and then I sort of like gave Jack like, okay, here's what should happen in episode 2. You just go with it. Dude, get here however you want.
Sure.
Land here somehow.
Just get here somehow. And then I did the really important stuff, which I thought up a bunch of dumb little bits like the noodle stand and things like that. Those are very, very important.
Yeah.
I'm very attached to
Yeah. Well, West hasn't eaten actual like real human food in years. So, and then I definitely nailed down like a villain entity, like a specific villain entity for the overarching whole series, and then one other kind of main character who's sort of a villain. And I've already actually tapped somebody to play him. So
cool.
Yeah, that's what I did. The end.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like you were quite productive.
You did a lot of things.
Over on my end, I was supposed to get some words down. I think as of last time I was like, I think I threw out everything and I started over. Every time I do that, I don't. One trick that anybody else should remember is never delete anything. If you're going to like trash a whole bunch of text or whatever, just start a new document. And so every time I have gone back to a blank page, the version number increases by an entire increment. So last time we talked, I was on version 2. I'm on version 5 now. That's how many times I've gone back to a blank page. So this has been kicking my ass a little bit is the phrase I tend to use, where I was just having a really hard time getting going on it. I am, however, this podcast, Behind the Locked Doors, is doing exactly as I intended it to, which is that I probably would have dropped this like super down on the priority list, if not just said, screw it, I'm done. Because that's how things were going, except for the fact that I knew that I was going to have to come on here and explain myself. And so I kept at it. I now have a document. Version 5 of episode 1 has, let me do a word count on it real quick. 1,600 words. So 1,600 words.
Okay.
Which is further along than I had gone. It's different than it was before. Character names have gone all over the place, and the main conceit of it is still there, but the tone is quite different. And well, tone, I'm not sure if tone is right. The basic structure, but previously I was thinking it was going to be like a noir detective bounty hunter kind of thing, and now it's turning into more of a like chaotic crime guy getting revenge on stuff that happened in the past, and we're gonna pull one over on both the main character and the audience. So yeah, I like I said, this has been quite a struggle. It's been a lot of like sitting down at my desk and being like, okay, time to write, and then getting up an hour later and being like, nothing happened. Or a lot of stuff happened, but I don't have anything to show for it.
Okay, so quick question, Scott. Where did you end up with the scene that we discussed last time, where you have like your main characters like narrating at the beginning, and then the other, like the actual person who speaks out loud when that character is talking? Like, how did that end up?
The answer is that in the current version of things, that scene is gone. The thing I was struggling with was the idea of I wanted to sort of explain some backstory, and doing so, having the narrator say all of that, I didn't feel like I could lie to the audience about things. I had to explain who the main character was.
Right.
And then at the time, the character was just sitting alone in a room and didn't have anybody to talk to. I just dumped that entire scene and started more in media res, where we're having action already. Hello, boys.
The boys are here.
The boys have showed up. I think they heard something outside and are now worried. So I just dumped that entire scene, started more in media res with like in the middle of a fight that's been fixed and our main character is supposed to lose, but instead wins. And then my plan is instead to have somebody else explain the main character's history to them. So they have a wrong version of it. Right. They get to tell the story. And then later on, we'll reveal what the truth is.
Okay, fine.
That is the current plan. I basically just dumped that entire dilemma. It was one of the things that was a sticking point. So I just was like, screw it. Let's not do that.
Well, yeah, sometimes if you can't make a conceit work, it's time to just throw it out and do something else.
One of the things I was thinking about was, and this is something I've experienced, and I feel like I've seen other writers talk about the idea of like maybe over planning is maybe the way to put it. Where like you spend a lot of time thinking about an idea, thinking about characters, thinking about places you want to end up, scenes that are going to come later. And it makes it more difficult to write like the first part. It's like to get started. You know?
Yes.
I see so many people talking about original characters and story ideas they have, and they're writing like the main climaxes or something like that, and they're writing sort of like the fun parts, and then lamenting the fact that they haven't actually started like the real, quote unquote, real work of getting it done.
Yes.
Yeah, the beginning.
And if you have an idea that feels like this is good, this is really interesting, this is really fun, and that I want it to be really, really good, that creates a ton of pressure to like get it right when you're starting to like create the actual work of itself. And it can actually, it feels to me like it gets so much in the way of actually getting it done, because you've built it up in your head, or at least I do. I build it up in my head. I'm like, okay, this is a good idea. I really want it to be, successful. I really want it to work. I want my execution to live up to what is in my head about how good this is. And you find that your expectations about that can really like overrun your ability to just like put things on the page. Yeah. So that's my main, one of the things that I've been struggling with, which is like, okay, I just need to do it. Like fucking, like the freedom to be bad at something is really like important in order to like create anything creative, right? Like you can't sit down and expect, okay, I'm going to write good text now. At least I can't. Where it's like, yeah, you have to have the freedom to do something that's trash. Otherwise, you won't do anything at all.
This is why I'm such a fan of the zero draft concept, where you're going, it is fine if there is not a single word in this draft that stays the same as the finished project. The point of this is to get the idea out of your brain and onto the paper or onto the computer screen, so that it can be massaged and tweaked and twisted and, smushed into its final form.
Yeah, well, and like Sam was saying about like sort of discover writing, where you no matter how much time you spend thinking about something, when you finally get to the actual writing of it, you're going to find new parts to the story, to the characters. You're going to find new things. True. And you just have to do something to get them to work. Like, so yes, I've maybe sounded a little bit negative about the fact that I'm on version 5, where I've literally gone back to the drawing board a few times. I have done this enough to recognize that is a part of the process, right? Like I wouldn't have been able to write.
You found 4 paths that you don't want to take, and that's useful.
And there are things that I learned and came up with in those previous versions that I know I can't use the text, but like I know who a character is now because I've written some of their dialogue, and I know a little bit what their voice is like, and I've named them, or I've come up with some aspects about their character that then get reused or get changed. But like, it's not just about like finding the wrong way to do it, but also just finding those things that you want to keep as well. Even if you can't keep like text itself because that scene doesn't happen anymore, you've picked some elements up that you go, okay, these are things I want to do. Phrases I want to use, like the beast at the other end of my soul is one of those things that I was in my very first draft, and I like that phrase, and it resonated enough with me to go, okay, I'm just going to keep using this. So it's that kind of discovery is important. But man, when you're sitting down at a blank page and going like, okay, I have this built up in my head, it needs to be good, and well, crap, I don't know if any of these words that are in my head right now are actually good or not.
Yeah.
So
that's what the second and third passes are for, or the fourth.
And it's just part of the process. So, but like I said, this project Behind the Locked Doors is doing exactly what I was hoping for. We're just super grateful, because I would have dumped. I would have been like, this is too hard. I'm struggling with it. I'm not doing enough. I don't have and there's other stuff going on in life. So I would have, prioritized other things, and this thing would have gotten backburnered. And instead I actually have something I'm fairly happy with right now. So
accountability is a magical thing. Didn't you say too, when you were working on Rat Among Falcons, that was one that you started over a whole bunch of times, or had like used a idea that was for a project many years ago that never got like off the ground or something like that? I seem to remember. Oh yes.
Not Rat Among Falcons specifically, but in Breathing Space, that the entire idea of the family and a bunch of their like history and stuff was from a completely different project. It was a thing that I was experimenting around and doing sort of like a semi-collaborative thing where I would ask my Twitter followers questions about a world, and then I would make up the responses for it. I had these big long tweet threads, and I was planning on doing a thing with it, and it never happened. And then when this next project, which ended up becoming Breathing Space, came around, we were like, oh, we need another faction. And I was like, oh, let me just steal from past Scott and just inject this whole thing into the new setting. So there's, again, this is why you don't ever delete anything. You can always put those drafts in another folder. You know, text files don't take any room, so just keep them. And
I always have a document that says cuts in the folder with whatever. Like my third novel, I have a cuts folder or a cuts document in that folder, and just the cuts is like, I don't know, 10,000 words or something. It could be a whole nother book.
Yeah. And that means you can.
There's good stuff in there.
It also makes it easier to cut because you're like, okay, I'm not really losing it, and it might come back, and sometimes things do. You know, I've had, and then I also had on our docket, which is to say a single line of text that I wrote in the chat, that we were going to talk a little bit about overcommitting, which I think all of us can feel right now.
Oh my God.
Knowing your own limits.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
I definitely feel that. There are back on the lap. Okay. Are you going to behave, or are you going to try to stand up and sniff the microphone again?
Just wants to talk. It's part of the podcast.
Yeah. So like that thing of like, what can I agree to do? What can I not agree to do? Saying like, I don't know about y'all, at least with my head, it's like my own enthusiasm to do things. Like, it's not that like some people are feel very obligated by when people ask them to do things. They're like, oh, well, so-and-so needs me to do it. I personally do not have a problem with telling people no on things that I don't want to do. The problem is that I want to do everything.
Yeah.
That's real. Yeah. Like,
I think what's happening with me right now is I am just past how do I explain this? I just did the whole making your side gig your main gig. Like, my like day job, quote unquote, is now like something I do once in a while for extra income, and like voice acting and audiobook narration is like my job now. And so when I get audiobook offers, that's my job. Like, that's like what I'm supposed to do. And so when I audition for things, but I also just get offers too. And the offers are always so, like, I can't say no to the offers because I'm worried that, because like, as an example, I got an email last week from a audiobook production company I've actually don't have a profile on, because I couldn't figure out how to like get into it. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's almost like you need the invitation, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
And an author had asked for me. They had requested me, and cool. And I was like, "Whoa, that's awesome!" But at the same time, I was like, "Dude, if I say no, like these people aren't going to come back because like I don't have a profile on this in this place. These people don't really know me, and they and I have that audiobook that I like signed, quote unquote, the contract for yesterday. The due date is next week. So I have to do an audiobook in a week. But thank God it's a dual narration. It's not the whole book. So that's nice. But I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, I'm already doing an audiobook. I have 2 more episodes of Breathing Space to edit. I have this other thing I'm working on. Like, I have all this stuff. And then now I have a week to do another audiobook. But at the same time, I was like, if I say no, then this person that like sought me out, like, you know, that I can't say no to that because then I'm going to lose other opportunities. So it's not so much like I feel obligated to like, if somebody asks me to, I have no problem saying no if I'm like, no, I literally can't do it. I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But like in that particular scenario, I was like, oh, fuck, no, I gotta say yes.
Well, it's really hard to turn down an opportunity that could open you up to further opportunities. Like, I run into that a lot in also my third job, which is freelance illustration, where someone will contact me and be like, hey, I want you to, you know, illustrate whatever, this tabletop game, whatever. And I always have to be like, well, it's November. I'm a retail worker. I work like crazy hours between now and Christmas, whatever. And then if they're like, well, yeah, we need it by the beginning of the year, I have to be like, you need to contact me in April. I'm so sorry. Like, there's simply no way. Like, so I have, for the people who I've worked with before, they now know like September through the end of the year is not a good time for me. Like, if you need me to illustrate something for you, you need to come to me in the summer. You need to come to me in the spring. I have all the rest of the year to help you out. I cannot be helping you out through September. But, you know, there are clients who I work with multiple times who are like, I don't have a hard deadline. I want you to start the work and like work on it however you can, and then we'll figure out a deadline for sometime next year. But can you start it now? And I'll even try and get you the plums early, and then they don't. And then but it's like, it's hard to say no. It just is, because it is like a if you say no to something that could give you further opportunities, you're like, am I losing myself all those opportunities?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's so easy when you know when you know how long it's going to take, what your hours are committed for, how much like if it was just a job, you know, you could say, okay, well, they're going to pay me this much. It's going to take this many hours. This is how many hours free I have. And that makes it really easy, right? You're like, okay, is it worth, right? Yeah. But you have this other giant unknown quantity of, well, you know, this will get me in with this company. It'll be, you know, starting a relationship with somebody I want to work with in the future. You know, it's more stuff for my resume or portfolio. You know, when you have all of those giant unknowns about how much it really will pay off, it definitely makes the mental math of trying to figure out if it's worth it, it's much harder, where you're like, because you don't really know what that looks like. And the inverse is also true, because sometimes people come to you and they say, I have this thing. And you're like, I have no idea what that will take to do, but I want to try. Yes. So you have no idea what the like cost side of it is either. And it's also worth, it's worth not discounting. I guess I don't know how to, it is worth keeping in mind also things just like mental load, even if you have the physical time available to do it, but like you already have enough things on your plate. Sometimes just adding another plate just isn't going to work, you know, that like, even if you had the time and the energy to do it physically, just having to manage it, having to like never like think about how much time it takes to respond to emails and people's messages about stuff, and like count that into whether or not something's worth doing. It's which I always forget. Like all of that admin stuff is sometimes, depending on exactly what you're talking about, can be as much or equal to every other part of working on a project, you know. If you're having to wrangle people, like we're lucky on this one that we've just said like, okay, every Thursday we're going to talk, or every other Thursday, every couple of a couple of weeks we're going to talk. So there's no, like, I don't spend a lot of time chasing y'all down for this project. You show up.
Right. There's not so much wrangling for that.
Yeah. And that's designed to make this happen. Like if we had a lot of extra work to do, then this kind of project wouldn't be able to.
That would defeat the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a productivity negative.
I think that's where I am right now. Like I've taken on just a little bit, like physically, I'm totally fine. I have actually plenty of hours in the day to do everything, but my mental load is, I also have Maltopia. I threw a demo at Maltopia, and they're so cool, and they're so like excited about stuff. They're just really cool bunch of people. And they were like, yeah, hey, can you, we love your demo reel. Can you do this thing for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I recorded an episode for Maltopia this week on top of the audition for the audiobook. And now I actually have a meeting with them today, which I think might be like a meeting, like a callback type thing for another role. And I'm like, I am so excited. But also I was thinking about it when I woke up this morning, because I knew we were going to talk about this. And I was like, man, all I could do last night was play Minecraft. Like I couldn't make myself do anything else.
Like that's how much brain you had left.
Yeah. That mental load is something that like, it's one of those things that like, it feels like a recent discovery almost. I'm sure that people have understood this, but like I hadn't heard anybody talking about it in creative spaces, that idea of like all of the other things around it, and keeping up your creativity and your ability to just handle tasks. I feel like that was something that people really, really used to discount. Like, oh, if you have the hours of the day, you can make it work. And now we realize that like, no, if you think that way, then you are going to burn out and not be able to do anything at all eventually. So it's absolutely worth keeping in mind. Like what you can do when your mental load is too high already. You're like, okay, I've got too much going on. It's the holidays. I've got to plan things for my family. That counts. Things like that. Obligations that aren't work and aren't project related also.
Yeah. Like cleaning your kitchen takes mental load, or like inventorying what's in your pantry before the next time you go grocery shopping. Like all that stuff is still.
I don't know if this is just an ADHD thing or if other people get this too, but literally I have gotten a new object that has to go somewhere in my house. I need to decide on a place for it. Doing that too many times in a row fucking wipes my ass out. It will kill me. Like, it's like, okay, I now own extra screws. I need to find a place where I can keep some extra screws.
Fuck, where am I going to put my screws? God damn it.
And like literally doing that too many times, it's just like, no, I can't handle.
In this household, there's 4 people.
Yeah.
So like there's just a bunch of stuff. Like I have school stuff from my kids, and I have, art projects that you definitely can't just throw art projects in a drawer because then they'll be sad. You have to like make room on the fridge. You got to put them on the wall. And then there's just detritus like everywhere all the time.
Yeah, just on every surface. Yeah, real.
I think our voting registration or something sits in that pile for a while, so you can't throw anything away. Like you never know.
Stuff like that just piles and piles on.
So I'm gonna hold up a piece of paper, which is bad radio, but I'm gonna do it anyways. This is my November schedule. I don't know if you can see. There's something on every single day except the 18th of November. Wow. Sometimes multiple things per day. November was a bad month. So when I have like that all going on, and then also there's like a ring of something sticky on my coffee table that has been there for like literally a month. And every time I sit down at the coffee table, I'm like, shit, I need to go get the cleaner and clean up the sticky ring of whatever it is. But because I'm already exhausted, I've sat on my couch and now it's too late. It is slug era. Like I'm not moving. And by the time I get up from the couch, I've forgotten about the sticky ring again. Oh my God.
Shaking your hand, Jack. My November was terrible too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like it's that time of year. Like, I guess if we can come up with any kind of practical advice, it's just don't plan things for November or December if you're if you're in the Western.
Yeah, say no to stuff in November and December specifically. That's
like if you're starting to think about like
I'm not even joking.
And also sometimes you might have projects like we're all 3 of us are talking about doing audio dramas. Well, that means that at some point we're gonna have to figure out when does casting happen, when does recording happen, when does the actual release happen. All of those things have to happen. And if you can arrange it such that none of those important things happen during November and December would probably be a good idea is maybe the way to put it.
Well, yeah, we're all like in November. A lot of the things that were written on that horrible calendar I just held up were breathing space recordings because I got most of my mainline episode recorded in November. And I was just thinking the whole time like, damn, we were so efficient and productive at this. And also I didn't have I had literally 1 day off in November.
No, I feel you. Yeah. It's one of those things where like, that was just the way the scheduling for the seasons worked out that we,
right.
And then also breathing space, that entire team, this is both a virtue and a vice or virtue and a vice where like the moment that we can do something, we tend to just go ahead and do it. And so like we probably could have pushed a lot of that recording off and it would have been fine because we have stuff that's not going to be released until September, that's already recorded. So like we're way, way ahead, but it's part of that's just enthusiasm and also wanting to get it out of the way.
And not wanting to run behind later. Like if something comes up and like recordings do have to get rescheduled, which happens a lot, especially in the wintertime because people get sick and then they can't record. But if you have everything recorded way, way in advance, it's like we have tons of wiggle room. If we need to reschedule a session, no big deal. And that's really nice to have that flexibility.
It is, although...
But also...
the continuous rescheduling of things is also it's a set of work and a set of mental load. Like we recorded breathing space one of my episodes last night, and we had somebody out sick, and I made the call. That was already a session that had gotten rescheduled previously, and I made the call. I'm like, we're just gonna go do it, and the person who's sick will, we would love to have had them there, but they're just gonna have to do it independently. And the main reason I made that call, we had plenty of regular. None of that's gonna be out till May. In all likelihood, I could have rescheduled, but my thought was, I can't have this on my plate anymore. I need to just I just need to have something done.
We need to just get it done, because for you and me and the other person and the sick person, we would have all had to reschedule that session and find another time.
And in the meantime, I would have had to be thinking about it, and I wouldn't have been able to, like, I'm already doing the rough cut. Well, that's another scene that I couldn't rough cut. So there's some decisions about, like, I'm like, there's just too many knock-on effects. I just have to do it. And that was a conscious thing of, like, I need to not have it on my plate anymore. Yeah. Despite the fact that we technically had the room, I got enough stuff going on that I'm like, no, honestly, a part of it was I need less things on my breathing space plate so that I have more room on the It Takes a Wolf plate. Otherwise, because every time something new comes up on that project, I know it's eating out of it's eating out of this other, time and energy. Because, like, there's different types. Like, I have so much audio drama energy, and breathing space shares that with It Takes a Wolf. Well, like, but I got when I want to do something mechanical and I'm going to build a 3D printer or whatever, that doesn't eat into the other stuff because it's different enough. So there's sometimes that ability to bounce back and forth is super useful. So
as an editor, I definitely appreciate all of the trying to get everything recorded quickly, because
on the early
I consider myself a pretty fast editor. I've got most of it done, like all 3 episodes. So I have so many things coming up. I won't be able to put the editing off. I mean, I need to get the editing done immediately.
Oh shit! I need to get you take notes, Sam. I owe you.
Oh hey, that's okay. And actually, when we did In Better Light, Mel didn't give me any take notes. She just sort of is like, take the bet.
Trust your judgment.
And also, a lot of the time, with a lot of things in breathing space, somebody will say they like this take best, but there's like just one little section of one little line that somebody says where, like, there's a click or there's a pop or their voice broke or something, and I gotta cut it anyway. So I mean, most of the time you can just be like, I mean, I like this take, and I'll be like, okay, I'll use the best parts of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, and, like, at least with me, I also just can kind of assume that it's almost always take 3. Like, the first one's a rotten take. The second one, you're going to have some more notes, and then the third one's where they finally, like, really slam it, and then you just pull back from anything else that you need.
And then you'll have actors though that are backwards.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. I'm pointing at Sam right now.
So you'll have a take. Yeah, you'll have a third take that's really good, but you'll have one actor whose first take was the best because they get progressively tired or whatever. Yeah, sometimes, it's interesting. It's really fun editing things because you learn little things about people.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to get the stuff on there, because I'm already doing the rough cut on my mini series, and I haven't done the latest tower, but I think I hit 19 hours of raw audio on that one last night.
Yeah, I think I saw that number.
Yeah, I just cut everything that I had together, just, basic audio, get the take I wanted. And it's 2 hours and 40 minutes and I'm still missing a couple of scenes. It's like, which again, this is never discount the little things that can take your time. Cause, like, literally just listening to it so that I can hear what needs to be fixed takes 3 hours now. Like, which is, I was in my head, I wasn't mentally classifying that was even something that takes time, so we'll just listen to it. No, Scott, it takes 3 hours to listen to.
Yeah. I feel privileged because In Better Light was really easy because I was in almost all of those takes. So it's like, I remember and I know, I'm like, oh yeah, we talked about this, blah, blah, blah. But, like, with Judah, I wasn't in any of those recording sessions. So I have to listen to all of it because I don't know what's going on. I also like to listen to it all because then I can choose things for bloopers.
Oh, yes.
But anyway, it's a different story.
Yeah. That being said, I've done enough bloopers now that I can look at waveforms and guess where the bloopers are going to be.
Right.
Because you can look, you're like, there's a bunch of laughing right there.
Yep.
There's probably something funny.
It's always like interiority. There's something on his line, and then there's just laughing on everybody else's, and I'm like, oh, yep, there it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
He's so funny, and he's like so like deadpan about it, and so his waveform's normal, and everybody else is like
right. And he doesn't have really a part in Better Light, so it's like his waveform is literally nothing, and then one thing, and then everybody else's is one like completely filled up with laughter,
losing their fucking minds.
Okay. Well, on the note of not overcommitting ourselves, and let's go ahead and we'll wrap up for today. But as is part of the format, we have to sort of set a little bit of a goal for ourselves.
Yes.
Just again, you do not feel like you need to set something overcommitting. We were just talking about that. So if the answer is I'm not doing anything for the next 2 weeks, that's fine. But what is y'all's plan for until next time we?
My goal for myself is to not die because I work a bunch of extra hours next week. But I do want to. So once I have seen like the sort of first episode draft from Sam, I can dig in and like write the second episode draft because I want like a sense of what the found footage like vibe is going to be like. And, you know, because we talked about maybe both of our main characters having like a mic on them that's just like set to record all the time to get footage for West or footage audio for West. So I would love to see like what we want the tone of that to look like before I start slapping words down on the second half of the pilot. I did start listening to the Penumbra podcast finally. So that's part of my homework is to listen to Penumbra because I know that was an inspiration for Sam for this. But I'm not going to be too hard on myself if I don't get very far on anything next week.
Yeah. In retrospect, starting this podcast right before the holidays, maybe we should have started in January, but at least we're making progress.
This is another one of those things where like, we were so excited about this. Let's just do it. Let's get going. And now we're like, fuck hell.
I think we have made more progress on it than we would have if we had not doing this. So it has been productive. And I've enjoyed talking to y'all. Like this hasn't been a...
Yeah, I like to hang out with you guys. It's a good time, even if I'm not productive in the 2 weeks between.
Honestly, giving people a realistic view of what it looks like to do things as your fourth and fifth job kind of slot in your life is totally reasonable. There's value in that for people to be like, oh, this is all these other people who, you know, they might be seeing the Instagram version of our lives wherever, you know, where it's like they see the finished products. They don't see all of the like slamming our heads into the table. As we try to do stuff. Okay.
I do have to say though that all three of us are never ever going to be like, oh my God, you didn't get that done. And we're never going to be like that. True. But it's still this wonderful kind of low stress, like, oh, I should probably get this done. It's like still a motivator, even though I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that neither one of you are going to be mad at me if I don't get something done.
It's entirely a mechanism to drive intrinsic our internal motivation.
Yes.
I'm like, I know that
internal.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's working. Okay. So Sam, did you have a goal you wanted to publicly state, or is it just a get through the holidays, don't die kind of?
No, I have goals. I have to have them.
Okay.
So I have to have this new audiobook done by Wednesday of next week. And I just want to say that I'm really excited because I'm playing a trans dude and it's a gay romance novel.
So, awesome.
Oh my God, I love that for you.
Really fucking exciting. Anyway, it's like an actual like book that people are going to read and it's an author that people know about. It's crazy. Anyway,
I love that.
The other narrator's great. I just listened to the first book last night and he's good. I'm excited. Okay, so I got to get this other book done. I also have to get the rest of the other audiobook that I'm doing done, the one with a lot of Scottish accent. God damn it. So there's actually 2 audiobooks that I have to get done. And then I want to write the first episode, or at least have a skeleton written of the first episode of As in West before the first of the year. That's my
gotcha.
like goal.
Yeah.
That I will be unhappy if I don't do. So it's like I got to do it.
I get you. As for mine, I think I've typically used word count as my goal thing, which I think is I'm regretting, or not regretting. I'm learning from my experience that word count is, although it is a good metric of if you're making progress. I think this time I'm going to say that what I want to do, I want to get to the point where I can write the first flirting scene between the main character and the love interest. That I know she's going to be in the first episode. I can get to the point where those two, where the main character can flirt with the femme fatale, and I'm like, that sounds good. I want to do that. Whatever I have to do to get to that point, I'm going to try to do that before we talk again.
That's exciting.
Okay.
Make a more nebulous goal there.
Listen, the word count thing is great until you throw out all your words 5 times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, the thing is, it becomes harder to track because I mean, from the last time we talked to now, I had 1,300. I now have 1,300 words, but I think I wrote another 1,000 somewhere in there that got tossed.
Right.
Not counting all of the times that I was like literally pacing around my house or walking out in the world, talking aloud about the ideas, which counts for something. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to choose a more. I mean, like I said, we're going to get to the flirting. That'll be fun.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay.
On that note, we will catch y'all again either in a couple of weeks or in the new year. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to give us some support, you could head on over to patreon.com/cursedknowledge. Or you can find us on the internet at library.horse, which at the moment just goes to our Twitter, but I need to make a website at some point in the future. Yeah, well, that's just another thing I don't have time for. Anyway, later. Bye.